On December 25, 2013, what began as an exciting adventure turned into a heartbreaking tragedy. Darrin Spivey, 35, decided to go cave diving with his 15-year-old son, Dillon Sanchez, using the scuba tanks he had given Dillon as a Christmas Eve gift. Despite the holiday, they were eager to embark on this adventure, likely hoping to check off an exciting experience from their bucket list. What was meant to be a memorable experience sadly turned into a tragic event that claimed their lives due to their lack of cave diving knowledge. On that day, by 7 a.m., they drove to a nearby local dive site park, but unfortunately, it was closed, perhaps for the Christmas holiday. Not giving up, Darrin decided they could visit the Eagle Nest Sink Cave in Hernando County, Florida, which was inside a wildlife management area that he knew was open 24/7 to hunters, hikers, and divers. With the entrance open, they exited the car, donned their wetsuits and scuba gear, and shuffled toward a wooden walkway that begins in the parking lot and extends like a dock over the pond. As they ventured down the walkway, the pair could have passed multiple signs warning them that only expert divers should attempt to enter the water. This seemingly serene pond was the gateway to the notorious and dangerous Eagle's Nest, revered in the cave diving community as the Mount Everest of cave diving. Beneath the calm surface lay a narrow opening leading to an extensive and treacherous underwater cave system. Expert divers approach the small entrance, grasp the guideline that descends into the cave, and follow it straight down until the light from above disappears. The guideline is typically a fixed line or rope that divers follow by holding onto it as they swim through the cave. It helps prevent them from getting lost, especially in environments like Eagle's Nest, where the underwater passages are complex and can be dangerous if a diver loses their sense of direction. As the expert divers descend, they find themselves enveloped in complete darkness. Emerging from the tunnel, they enter an enormous cavern known as the ballroom. In this expansive chamber, if a diver pauses and shines their light in any direction, they are met with infinite blackness. The space is so vast that even the most powerful flashlight cannot reveal its walls. Divers who have ventured into this abyss often describe the experience as similar to floating in outer space. The guideline plunges straight down to the base of the ballroom at approximately 130 feet, where a chilling sign awaits divers. It bears the image of a grim reaper and reads, "Stop, prevent your death, go no further," signifying that there's nothing in the cave that is worth dying for. This foreboding warning is your last opportunity to turn back and reach the surface with relative ease. Beyond this point, the cave branches off in two separate directions, with tunnels that narrow and twist, reaching depths of up to 300 feet. Navigating these passages is dangerous, unless you are highly experienced, and even then the danger is significant. The strong currents that flow through Eagle's Nest pose an additional threat. Losing the guideline, especially within the vast expanse of the ballroom, can leave you disoriented and at the mercy of the darkness. In the oppressive darkness of the cave, finding your way becomes a daunting challenge. Without the guideline, it's like wandering through an endless void, with no clear direction. Each moment without it increases the risk of becoming hopelessly lost. As Darrin and Dillon reached the end of the wooden walkway and prepared to dive into the pond, they seemed undeterred by the numerous warnings posted along the way. Despite their excitement, neither of them was an experienced diver. Dillon was still a novice, with this dive being one of his very first. Darrin, eager to share his passion for diving with his son, had texted his fiancée to let her know they were at Eagle's Nest and gearing up for their dive. He promised to call once they had safely surfaced. After sending the text, Darrin put his phone away. With their spirits high, the duo jumped into the water and swam purposefully toward the dark, foreboding entrance of the cave, oblivious to the looming danger that awaited them. Hours ticked by, and as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Darrin's fiancée grew increasingly anxious. By 3 p.m., she became particularly worried when she realized she hadn't received a call from Darrin, as he had promised. Realizing something might be wrong, she decided to check on them herself. Hopping into her car, she drove to the parking lot at Eagle's Nest. When she arrived, she noticed Darrin's car was still there, but there was no sign of him or Dillon. She was not the only one concerned. Earlier in the day, a hunter had seen Darrin and Dillon suited up and ready to dive around 11 a.m. By 6:30 p.m., when the hunter returned, the car was the only thing left behind. There were no divers inside. Panic set in, and she quickly called the police. The authorities responded swiftly, sending a team of professional divers to investigate. Recovery divers began searching the waters about an hour later and discovered both bodies in the main cavern area between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. The divers suited up and entered the water, making their way to the narrow entrance of the cave. They followed the guidelines down the tunnel and emerged into the vast, eerie expanse of the ballroom. Holding tightly to the guideline, they pulled out their flashlights and began their search. They swept the beam of light across the ceiling of the ballroom, where fatalities near the entrance were not unheard of. The divers, familiar with the risks, knew they had to be thorough in their search. As the divers swept their flashlights across the expansive ceiling of the ballroom, their hearts sank when they spotted Dillon's lifeless body pinned against the ceiling, just 6 feet from the entrance. It was clear he had tried to use his water wings and emergency flotation devices, but they were no match for the situation. His mouthpiece was out and his tanks were empty. Carefully, the divers retrieved Dillon's body and made their way back through the dark, twisting passages of Eagle's Nest. They followed the guidelines down to the button of the ballroom, where they discovered Darrin. He lay on a small sandy rise, his mouthpiece also out and his tanks devoid of air. Nearby, the ominous sign featuring the Grim Reaper stood as a grim reminder. Stop. Prevent your death. Don't go any further. The gauges on both Darrin and Dillon's equipment revealed they had descended to an alarming depth of 230 feet. For context, depths from the surface down to 130 feet are considered recreational diving territory, where divers can use regular air without needing special training. But anything beyond 130 feet requires a complex mix of gases, specialized gear, and extensive training, none of which Darrin and Dillon possessed. After a thorough investigation, it was concluded that Darrin and Dillon's deaths were the result of a tragic accident. The theory suggested that they had ventured through the entrance into the ballroom, descended to the bottom, and then explored one of the 2 side tunnels branching off. They reached a staggering depth of 230 feet, where they likely succumbed to nitrogen narcosis, a condition akin to being intoxicated. In this disoriented state, they lost track of both time and their remaining air supply. When they finally attempted to return to the ballroom to ascend, they ran out of air. It's believed that Dillon was the first to deplete his air supply, and in his desperation, he turned to his father. Dillon showed Darrin his empty air gauge, prompting Darrin to pass his regulator to his son, initiating a desperate attempt at buddy breathing as they tried to make their way to the surface. But the situation worsened quickly. Darrin's air supply ran out soon after, and he lost consciousness, sinking back to the bottom. Dillon, still fighting to survive, took a deep breath of air and tried to swim upwards as fast as he could. He inflated his water wings to help with buoyancy, but in his panic, he must have let go of the guideline. Disoriented and unable to find his way, he swam up, collided with the ceiling, and ultimately succumbed to the darkness, drowning in the depths of Eagle's Nest. From the tragic incident, it became clear to the divers that while the men had the right gear, they lacked essential experience. Darrin held only an open water diving certification, while his son had no certification at all. Unfortunately, Eagle's Nest Sink does not require proof of diver certification before entry. The approach to Eagle's Nest Sink is marked by a series of stark warning signs highlighting the grave dangers below. But Darrin and his son did not heed those warnings with the necessary caution. Despite the clear and ominous warnings posted both outside and inside the cave, cautioning inexperienced divers against venturing further, the allure of Eagle's Nest continues to tempt many. The grim reality is that tragedies still occur, as inexperienced divers often underestimate the cave's dangers. So far, 11 lives have been lost within its depths, each a somber reminder of the risks that lurk beneath its surface. Yet the cave's reputation as a challenging and thrilling dive site keeps drawing adventurers, each believing they will be the exception. The echoes of past tragedies serve as a haunting backdrop for those who dare to enter, reminding them that the cave is unforgiving to those who are unprepared. If you found this video informative and thought-provoking, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and share it with others who might benefit from this story.